Giancarlo, I appreciate you coming out here. But a good buddy of mine from Dreamtown, and we've done. I think we've done a deal or a couple deals together, and just really appreciate you coming out here and checking this out. Now, how do you pronounce your last name? Because I always have a hard time with that because it's so Italian.
Bargioni.
Bargioni. All right. Well, that's not that tough. All right. I think I get that from now on.
That's it. Giancarlo Bargioni. That's it.
Giancarlo.
I get Giancarlo a lot, but everyone thinks when I introduce myself, I'm Giancarlo.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Carlo." No. That's my first name, Giancarlo Bargioni. And then so.
But you say John? You say Jean, right?
Yeah, Giancarlo.
Giancarlo.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay. I just wanted to make sure I said that right because it's important. So I wanted to have you on here to kind of shoot the shit, but more importantly is to talk about a little bit of real estate. I know you do a lot with new development as well as resale, as well as buyers, sellers, that sort of thing. Just kind of wanted to get a little insight from what you're seeing in the market, as well as kind of getting an idea of what you're forecasting in regard to what we're going to run into here shortly. I know we were talking about the NAR lawsuit. We can just jump right into that. I was just curious, like, where are you seeing, like, obviously you and I being seasoned agents are a little bit more excited about the opportunity to prove our worth versus the other agents that perhaps are a little newer. They really can't prove their worth. What's your take on that?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, Steve, right? So kind of a loaded question, right? We've got the NAR settlement issue coming to surface August 17th. And then we've got, where's the market going? Okay. And I think that the market's going to be exactly where it's been right now. It's going to be extremely competitive. There isn't a whole lot of inventory, and the inventory that is coming on the market, is going to be really gobbled up in so many words. There's a really pent-up demand right now. There's a lot of buyers just really on the sidelines, and I don't think that prices are going to be coming down anytime soon. In fact, I think they're going to continue to inflate. I don't think inventory is going to return to normal levels. Working with newer developers, or I should say new developments, all my developers right now are dealing in that high-end sector, 1.5 million plus, right? And that's the only deals that tend to make sense right now because of land acquisition. Land acquisition is so expensive. The cost to build is so expensive. The whole construction process in the city of Chicago is mind-blowing in so many words. The amount of red tape to start a project, to complete it with the whole inspection process, trade by trade, is it could really just take an extremely long time to actually build, and by the time it's done, these developers are sometimes 9 months, a year in, and then of course now the deal has to make sense. So
so they're not even so you bring them a piece of land that's 500 or whatever, and then they realize, okay, I'll put in 900 to build it, which is 1.4, and you're selling it at 1.8, let's say. This isn't happening for a good 9 months to a year.
Yeah, you got to be a good forecaster, right? Oh. And so a lot of my developers, they like kind of working with me because I tend to be a good forecaster.
Sure.
However, there's nothing quick about working with new developers. You literally have to find the property, right? And then you have to go through the entire process. That process could take as long as a year. All right. I haven't seen really a new development get done in less than 9 months, roughly. And that's if these developers are really dialed in. But for the most part, with the inspection process with the city, as soon as you put up the frames, the city's got to come out. Plumbing, city's got to come out. Electric, city's got to come out. Sometimes the inspection process, you could be 6 weeks before the inspector comes out, and then they give you a call at 7 o'clock in the morning. They say they'll be there between 9 and noon. And then you got to be there with your contractor. And if your contractor's 10 minutes late, that inspector leaves.
Oh, wow.
And then now you have to, go ahead and put in another request, for the inspector to come back out. That could kill your project, because if you're subbing out, which a lot of developers do,
right,
those subs get busy. Those subs have other jobs and whatnot. And so it can really delay the project. So delivery time sometimes is never what it seems. So bringing a new deal, and then land acquisition, building, planning process, inspection process, and then of course now we got to go into the market. a year from now, Steve, we know the market could be extremely different.
Yeah,
right?
no doubt.
And,
so forecasting is pretty tough, it seems like.
Forecasting's pretty tough. You got to really know the absorption rates. You got to know the path of progress. You got to have to see what other permits are out there, what other developments are coming, and so forth. And then, of course, you have to really identify your end buyer and then be confident, because you really only got one shot with these developers. You miss, and you probably won't get a second chance.
Have you been working with developers for most of your career, or?
No, I started early in my career. I was in rehabbing a little bit, and I always had a construction background. And then, of course, so back in 2009, right?
Yeah.
We were doing short sales. We were doing foreclosures. Boy, those were great days, weren't those, Steve?
Yeah.
And then my business kind of evolved, where it was like, I want to get to these higher price points. How do I get to those higher price points?
Yeah.
And then just started working with one rehabber, one developer at the time. And this kind of ties into value proposition and kind of what's coming with this NAR, right? Settlement. And I literally didn't have the experience. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have a lot of other realtors that what they had at that time when I was approaching these developers or approaching these rehabbers. But what I was doing was saying, hey, no one's going to work harder. Give me that shot. All right. And I really forced myself to learn, right? I forced myself to learn by really asking questions. And those questions really came down to what determines a good deal? Right. And then just, after speaking to dozens and dozens and dozens of developers, right. And then kind of getting inside of their mind. Well, it became a lot easier. So when I was able to call someone now, people know I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, you really think we can get this? And here's why. And I can pull up my spreadsheet and say, this is where I'm at. This is what you've told me is your cost to build. This is the average price per square foot. This is actually what I'm seeing in terms of rate of appreciation. This is the absorption rate. This is the inventory. And then we kind of go dive into it and say, hey, look, man, this is the time. This is when we want to deliver by. If you commit to this, I'm confident that we could hit this window and range.
Yeah, that's very analytical. That's awesome.
The analytical part takes time, right? Like that doesn't like
seems like it's pretty much right off your tongue.
Yeah, that takes a little bit of time, right?
Sure.
But in the beginning, it wasn't always there. It was like there were puzzles, there were pieces of the puzzle, right?
Sure.
Like you hear one developer talking about this, and you hear one developer talking about that, and you hear this guy talking about this, and then and then eventually, the more you're in it, right, it starts to all to come together.
Yeah.
And then once it starts coming together, that's when you're a force to be reckoned with. But in the beginning, it was just, hey, I would like an opportunity.
I want to sell this for you.
Yeah, give me a shot.
Yeah.
I won't let you down, right?
Yeah.
And it was showing up on time. It was being consistent. It was being persistent. It was being relentless, right? And that was the beginning of where it started. And it's been one hell of a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting to bring that up, because even the fact of being able to put an addition on, let's say, right? So I got a client of mine who they bought a property, and then they bought another property as an investment. Like, hey, Steve, what do you think it's going to cost, to put the addition on? And they tell me what they want to do and so on. And I don't know for sure. And I know that the market's changed in regard to how expensive, an addition would be, depending on square footage, depending on what, finishes, all that fun stuff that we always deal with. And, figuring just to put basically like, imagine a raised ranch, cutting the top off, putting the top on, and making it higher up. You think maybe 250, 300, and it was very off. It was around 385 to 425, and I was like, wow, like I didn't even realize that. But the thing is that with inflation and with the cost of material, I mean, it happened when I was 2020, and I put a fence around my house, and I started out with starting everything out, and I could do it for probably like $8,000. All of a sudden, it turned into 16 because the 4x4s that were $23 a piece went to like $75 a piece, and they needed 30 of them or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
It was insane.
It's tough, right?
Yeah.
And that all has to factor in, right, with some of your analysis, which is more or less why I'm always asking questions like, what is your cost to build? You know, I need that number. You know, where are you at? Because then I can go out there and I can find those deals. And finding those deals are not necessarily always easy, man. You know, because I'm not the only one. I'll give you a good example, Steve.
Yeah.
I've been working with this one developer, and not all of them have allegiance, right? Like, it's, if you bring them a deal, they'll come in and work with you, and if you don't, well, then too bad, right?
Right.
I was been looking for a particular type of property, couldn't find it. It was finally one came on the market. It came on the market probably like around 2. I called my developer at 3. Some other agent already had brought that deal to him. That's how competitive it is right now.
Wow.
Yeah, so you got to be on point, right? Yeah. And you really got to know how to do a quick snapshot analysis to make this make sense, because when those guys get on the phone, right, you got to be able to, hey, this is where we're at. This is what I think we can do. This is what you said you needed. Do you want to make an offer? All right. And this is your max allowable offer based on those margins that you said you wanted to hit. You know, do you want to do it? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. And some of these guys, they can make up their minds pretty quickly, but if you try blowing smoke up their behind, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. No,
and so, but that's the evolvement process, right? Like, that's kind of like the end game, right? But in the beginning, like you said, Steve, it was not any of that. It was just like, hey, I can do this, right? And I think that a lot of newer agents that are struggling right now, that's where they're going to have to put a lot of their focus on, is that you got to control the controllables, and you got to really focusing on, how can I increase my self-worth? Because if your value proposition is better, you're predicated upon experience that you don't have, well, then, that's going to cause anxiety. That's going to cause stress. That's going to cause fear. And that's what you're going to actually manifest, right? So if you're, working on yourself, you're working on your education, you're working on your real estate knowledge, right? You're asking the right questions. And then more importantly, and I'm telling a lot of newer agents this, is attach yourself to the hip of a gunner, right? Someone whose name is known in this industry, someone that you know what they're talking about, is Steve Davis or Rafi, right? There's so many great agents that are out there that would be more than one to help, right? And I think that a lot of new agents need to kind of put their ego aside, check their ego at the door, and say, hey, I need help. Okay, if you were me in this environment, what would you do? Right.
Absolutely.
But a lot of agents aren't going to do that, and sadly, a lot of we're going to see some turmoil in the market. Turmoil in the industry, I should say.
Sure.
We're going to see a lot of agents sadly fall out. We're going to see a lot of agents probably get part-time jobs because they have poor financial management, and then the upper echelon, we're going to find a way to make it, Steve.
Here's interesting you bring it up, because how about last year? What was it like? There was an average of like 1 or 2 deals that agents would do a year. Like, I think it was last year or something like that.
I'm still shocked.
That's flooring to me. Like, I don't even know how that's.
I'm still shocked that's even a real statistic.
I know.
1 to 2 deals. So there has to be a bulk of just agents that are just ultra part-time, and then that bell curve, and there's like this curve here, because I can't even fathom that. But newer agents right now, I mean, if they're not busy now today in the second quarter, in the juice of the market,
right,
if you're anticipating to be busy in the third and fourth quarter, on the brink of this tumultuous upcoming election that's happening, right?
Oh man,
there's going to be a cool off, right? And you've got this pre-election freeze that I think is going to happen.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we'll look at the rates; they have not moved,
and they're not going to move.
Well, they came down for a second, and then they went back up.
Well, where are they going to go to, Steve?
Right.
They're going to go to 6.3.
Right.
What is that going to do for you? What is that going to do for you? I mean, let's just take simple math. We talked about this, right? 8 points year over year on CoreLogic, the gold standard of market research, right? 8 points. That's in Chicago, year over year appreciation. All right. That's crazy appreciation. All right. I mean, it's just, do rough math. What is that? 0.6% a month, give or take, right? Fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're better at math than me, but yeah.
Sure. Right. So, and then what? Right. I mean, so you wait 3 months, prices are up 2 points, but then your interest rate goes down 25 basis points. Are you saving money?
Right.
No, you're losing money.
Losing,
right.
Yeah,
you're losing
sure.
big money. So, this whole mantra of we're going to wait till interest rates come down, or interest rates, are they going to come down? They're not coming down. Okay. And when they do come down, they're going to come down to around 6.3%. So if you want to kind of jump ahead of this, what does 6.3% look at the type of property that you want to buy today? And is it really worth the wait?
Yeah.
That's the question that I think that's really the $1 million question that you got to start asking
yourself. The other question
yourself.
is, right now, the less of the buying power for people, the fact is that when the rates come down, you'll have buying power, but it's probably going to go up anyway in regards to the price point. So the buying power is
there's no such thing. The buying power is going to be the exact same, right? And then of course, what you don't think there's going to be more buyers. Buyers are not going to be in the market. You assume buyers are on the sidelines right now.
Right.
I mean, there isn't going to be a collapse. There's no indicators that would suggest such.
No.
Right? I mean, notice the defaults. I mean, if you look at foreclosures, I mean, where are they? They're not there. We have no wave of inventory.
I think I've saw a few short sales as well, like not many.
Well, fine. I mean, but regardless, I mean, and then you've got a bunch of investors waiting on the sidelines to tackle that inventory if it does come on the market.
Right.
And let's just say hypothetically, every single foreclosure that's in America right now came on the market at the same time. I still don't think it'd have an impact on prices, man.
No, I don't
because
think so
there's just so much demand right now for inventory,
right?
Where it's actually really much it's needed.
Yeah.
We need more inventory, but with the golden handcuffs at interest rates at 2 or 3% with this upcoming election, I wouldn't anticipate a whole bunch of inventory coming on the market in the fall.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. So if rates come down in the fall, but there's nothing to buy,
what's it going to matter? Right.
That's my whole
The
point.
other ones too is, we usually have a very slow, or I should say steady summer, not quite the uptick of the spring or perhaps the fall. But as far as the summer goes, kind of curious what's going to happen there, considering the fact that, people have waited to sell, right? And they've waited to buy. And now are they going to say, well, I waited until the summer. Now I really need to jump in. And what happens there if there's no inventory, right? There's less activity in the summer. Maybe there's a few less buyers, but then maybe there's a few less sellers. So there's no good time, in my opinion. It's really, you get in when you can, and you refinance when it comes down. And that's it. That's all I see.
That's the game.
Yeah.
That's the game. You have to be extremely intentional, right?
Yeah.
You got to know exactly what you want, where you want it, all right? And then you have to be willing to pay the price, right? Yeah. And the price that I'm telling everyone right now is look, it's not going to be the most pleasurable experience, right? There's probably 5 of you looking for that exact same house and the exact same price point, and everyone wants to buy yesterday. Okay. So when you're going out there and you're looking for real estate, you really got to say, hey, listen, we're going to be lucky to find 8 to 10 houses if we're lucky right now. Okay.
No, absolutely.
And you know what? We may go out on the first one, and if it actually checks off 8 out of 10 boxes, you may want to consider that one. All right. Yep. And just understand that if you look at the sale to list price ratios in this area, you're seeing 100%, you're seeing days on market, 4 to 8 days in some areas, right? You don't have time to think, right? You have to act now and then think later, right? And that thinking process will come once you get that contract locked up, right? But it's hard. It's hard with buyers right now. You got to have those difficult conversations.
It's important. It's funny you brought that up, because the important conversation aspect in regard to the people that have lived in a home for quite a long time, and when they were looking, they looked for 30, 40, 50 homes before they chose one, because there was inventory. Now there's no inventory. So even when I had that conversation with my clients today, they're moved back from out of state to Chicago, and they're 8 years ago, we had this crazy rush where you had to make decisions really quick. I'm yeah, that hasn't changed. It might actually even be even worse now. And it's the fact is you've got to move quickly. And some of these buyers, they aren't used to that. And even when you preempt them, they still are okay, I understand what my realtor's telling me, but let's see what happens anyway. And you get out there and all of a sudden you're all right, so it seemed out of the houses that you liked, 1, 2, 3, 4 Main type thing. And then if you want to go after that, this is what I would suggest, and so on, whatnot. I've done comps, it's this, it's that. Whoa, Steve, I don't want to move on that yet. Oh, okay. Sorry. I wasn't trying to rush you. I was just telling you if that was the one. Well, yeah, that's the one we like. Well, here's how this works. And then you have to basically look, you have to come off like a salesman, which you're not. Well, at least I don't try to come off that way, And I want to be like, listen, I'm not rushing you. The market is rushing you, not me. So you want to look at 10, 20, 30 more, whatever, you shouldn't have to, but if you do need to, for whatever reason, for your peace of mind or whatnot, that's fine. The other thing I would always say is you found a perfect house, you're going to find another one. It's not a big deal, just might take a little longer. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not rushing you. It's a sprint or a marathon, not a sprint, right? And I just think that's important to tell people, but at the same time, how many times you're going to go, what happens if this is the one that you're not going to have that multiple offer with, but the next 2 or 3 you're going to, and then by the time you're looked at 30 houses and you put in 5 offers and you're like, why can't I get one of these properties? It's strenuous. It's rough. It's hard. So
I think you hit it on the button, and I think now it kind of goes back into, you and I think are a little bit more comfortable having that conversations. We've been around the ringer, man. We've been in the highest of highs and lowest of lows. We've seen challenging markets. But we have this storm coming right now, and the storm now more or less is that we are the market experts, right?
Yep.
And now you have to have a difficult conversation on top of a difficult conversation, right?
Yeah,
come
sure.
August 17th, we know that we've got one difficult conversation, which is explaining the dynamics of the market, right? The dynamics of the market are such, okay? It is, I am going to make this a great experience for you, but this buying process is not going to be a great experience. Okay?
Right.
And you have to understand that right now, if you're unwilling to engage, if you're unwilling to pay full price, buy as is, waive inspection, sign an appraisal gap, okay? And obviously, even if you found the property and there are some things with some deferred maintenance, and then not be willing to purchase that property, this is not the market to engage in, okay?
Yeah.
And you'll be lucky to find 8 to 10 houses, okay? Now, in some areas, sure, some of the suburbs, right, where there's more value, yeah, you'll definitely see 8 houses. I can guarantee you there's not going to be 8 houses that you like.
Right.
There might be one that you like, and
yeah.
guess what? There's probably going to be a multiple offer scenario, all right? And then, of course, that's when you're going to rely on your agent, and your agent's going to have to be the one that's going to have to drive that deal home, right?
Yep.
And so that is the difficult conversation, is explaining the market dynamics to a buyer, right? And the second of that is and unfortunately now, because of this whole change in this class action lawsuit, right, there's 2 fundamental changes that are happening in the industry. No longer is compensation being offered in the MLS, and number 2,
Right.
sellers are no longer mandated to offer a co-op to a cooperating broker.
Right.
And so now you're going to have to make up that difference. Right. There's 2 difficult conversations, and agents right now are not comfortable having uncomfortable conversations.
Of course.
I mean, they're texting, they're emailing. How many times do you present an offer, Steve? We're calling on the phone. We're saying, hey, what can we do to get this done? There are some times I get an offer on a multiple offer scenario, and like, you never got back to me on your offer. I'm like, did you call me? Oh, wait, it's in junk email.
Right.
Right. And so, like, if you don't even know how to negotiate, there's three difficult conversations. First, you got to negotiate. You got to sell yourself to the agent, right?
Yep.
And then you got to, before you even get to that point, we got to get this agreement signed up front. All right. And then now we got to talk about market dynamics. And guess what? You're going to have to trust me. Can you convince this person? Right. And, my heart goes out to a lot of these newer agents that I don't know how to have those conversations or don't have that confidence.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that brings up a really good example because of the fact that, like, yeah, those difficult conversations that the agents have to have, but it also has to do with that they need to have the confidence to do so. And unless you actually have the experience, and more importantly is you have the willingness to understand that, like, this could go multiple different directions and how to handle those objections, you're going to have a heck of a time. And the thing is, with the buyer rep agreement, having that conversation is difficult, but at the same time, it's like, what is your worth, right? So I had a conversation with another person on the podcast, which you know of, and she, Amber, she was saying, well, this is what I'm worth. This is what you're going to pay me. And if you don't pay me, I understand, but you're going to get what you pay for. I mean, it's like that old thing they say, and it's very true. And from the suit that you wear to the car you buy to the agent you choose, it's like, all the same stuff. You've got to be careful in what you do. And that's another difficult conversation that you talk with your clients about, and then explain to the agent on how to talk to that client about it. You know, it's going to be a rough road, but the thing is and then here's the other thing. What's happening here? Like, what are we going to be able to do? Is a seller going to say, hey, I want 40 grand more so I can pay the buyer's agent? You know, how's that going to work? Is it going to go into their mortgage? Like, we have no insight on how this is working yet.
Here's I mean, and I've done some homework, right? You know, with respect to how I think it's going to pan out. And I think we're going to see, obviously, on the lendings aspect, they're going to allow an additional credit on top of the maximum allowable credit,
which they have talked about. So
so there's been a discussion. That's not set in stone.
Yeah, but it's not set in stone.
Yeah. Then, right. So we don't know. We're just guessing. So when people ask me how you know what mechanisms are going to be in place, I don't know.
Right.
I'm just telling you that this is coming, and we're going to be working through this together. Mm-hmm. But regardless, right, before we even go out, you have to understand that this is what it's going to cost to work with me, right? Mm-hmm. And I just don't want there to be any misunderstanding, all right? So, you know, leverage the time that we have right now between now and August 17th, right? You know, really ramp up and try to get as many people under contract as possible, because after August 17th, there's going to be some turbulence.
Yeah.
And it's just what it is, right?
Absolutely.
But the second part of that equation too, Steve, is like, okay, fine. We've got one possible mechanism. The second one is, our sellers going to be calling it concessions to be applied towards those buyer credits? And is that going to be allowed in broker remarks?
Is an agent able? I don't think they're going to allow that. I think they talked about that. But are they going? Is it going to be one of those where you call? You know, I call you up and hey, Giancarlo, we're going to buy this property. On the MLS, clearly it's not stated that you're giving that buyer fee, right? Or your sellers have not agreed to that. So hey, could you tell me? Are they giving a concession? Yeah, see if they're giving 1%. Okay, that means my sellers need to make, or the buyers need to make up the difference of 1.5. Fine, no problem, right? But are we going to be able to actually state that? Is that going to be a rule that you're not allowed, a law that you're not allowed to say?
We're gonna find out.
I know. Yeah, we got what? A little bit over 2 months to go. It's a little dicey.
Yeah. So right now, while the grass is green, okay, right, and the sun is shining, right. If you're blessed to be working with a buyer right now, really do the best that you can to get them under contract as soon as possible. Because after August 17th, it's really we don't know how this is all going to structure. Now, here's the truth: it's all going to work out, right? And those who can adapt, right? Those are the ones that are going to thrive. Those who have the confidence, those are the agents that have been putting in the work, right? And realize that this is an opportunity, right? They're going to be just fine, right? But the other aspect of it is, you're going to really, it's not going to get any easier. You just got to get better. And I think that's it's going to be an interesting ride. And so I am looking forward to it. But at the same time, I wish I had more answers to the questions that are out there. And no one has this figured out. Right. You're seeing all these gurus, right, coming out and say, we've got the answer. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
There are no answers.
And don't be fooled. Right. Don't be fooled. No one has this figured out. All right. So, focus on what you can't control, which is, hey, your experience, focus on your real estate knowledge, focus on market dynamics, focus on information, focus on your value proposition, right? Focus on anything that can increase your self-worth. Focus on your mind, focus on your emotions, get your money right, get your body right. Right, get all of that right, and then work on the things that you can't control. Right, being on time, making those phone calls, sending out those thank you cards, tightening up those CRMs. Right, all the little things. That's all going to make a big difference in your value proposition. That's going to come off. That's going to radiate. Right, so I think that everyone's focusing on experience and what I have and why, and you are enough, right?
But then the question is, are they going to pay? Are buyers going to be okay paying that number as well? Are they going to say, well, These other guys are going to be $5,000 just for for this property, and the property is $500,000, right?
So Steve, that's coming now,
right?
So that's coming, and we have to. You almost get your head in the hole if you don't think that that's coming, right? And you have to at least anticipate that, right? Mm-hmm. Until it becomes a norm, we have to anticipate that there's going to be some type of fallout. Right. There's going to definitely be a reduction in income. Excuse me. So with that being said, what I think is going to happen, Steve, is that we're going to start seeing agents instead of, if they're getting whatever, let's just say hypothetically the standard was 2.5%, 3.5% on the list. Mm-hmm. I think now you're going to start seeing more dual agency, non-agency, and then you're going to start to see more list heavy commissions because now we may be forced to take on dual representation. We may be forced to really control the deal. And now that is where the expertise is going to come in.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
This year alone, I've had 3 unrepresented deals, right? And I can tell you right now, it is like herding cats, right? I'm dealing with 2 different attorneys, obviously dealing with the buyers, dealing with the seller, all while under the umbrella of agency, making sure that I'm not violating any type of ethics requirement and so forth. That is going to be out there.
And the older agents are going to be okay. The newer agents are going to have a clue.
And no one wants to touch it. And no one wants to touch it. Right? No one wants to touch it. And no one has the confidence. I wouldn't say no one, right? Just most people don't have the confidence and the ability to have those conversations, right? Saying, hey, listen, this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. You need to be comfortable with this. And I need this in writing. Okay, I don't have any problem helping you.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't want to be sued in the process. As long as we can work within that framework, we could proceed forward. If not, I can't help you. Right.
I've got a buyer that, it was a referral, obviously, because I'm 100% referral. And the thing is that when I talked to her, she's like, listen, we want to work with you. We had a great conversation with you, so on. But as far as the buyer rep agreement, we want to go ahead and wait until we get closer to coming into Chicago, to sign off with you. And then, we'll do it for an increment of time. And I'm like, So what exactly does that mean? So asking clarifying questions and things like that, and make sure you understand the expectations. And basically it was like, well, we're going to sign the agreement with you when we start looking at properties, and as long as it keeps going well, we'll keep signing it. Similar to like every week. I'm like, well, that's not really going to work, because here's the thing. If I'm spending my time with you and I'm working really hard for you and I'm doing my job and I'm obviously providing the expectations that we set out together, then that works. But not to keep signing it, because that doesn't work for me. I work extremely hard for my clients. I go way above and beyond for my clients. Very proud of that. However, when it comes down to this, any agreement or working together with someone, you're gonna, you obviously have to make a commitment to me, just like I'm making a commitment to you. It's only fair, right? And that's the expectations that really need to be set, and they really need to be explained. And as you said, in writing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And that's where I think now is obviously the buyer consultation and having that outline, and then really kind of getting that out of the way and really pre-screening your clients. I mean, you're going to really have to get dialed in, and I know you are, Steve, and I'm there too, right? Mm-hmm. To the point where if you're not having those conversations right now, you're not going to get better later, right? So you got to start having those conversations with every single buyer that's there, right? And this is the state of the industry. This is the way things are done now, right? And there's going to be some buyers that are not going to see your worth. They're not going to see your value. And you know what? You're just going to have to say, maybe I'm not the agent for you.
Yeah, you just got to be okay with it.
And that's going to happen, because we all know what's coming, right? We know we're going to have these discount buyers, brokers. You're going to get what you pay for, right? And guess what? When you're in a multiple offer scenario, okay, you want that that guy in your corner, or do you want one of us in your corner?
And by the way, they don't fight for you.
No,
They
no,
don't care.
no. They'll send an email
Right.
with your contract that's going to end up in spam,
Right.
and say, "I did my job." Well,
Yeah.
you did do your job,
'Cause you
but
paid
you
me.
didn't get the
Right.
results, right? So, and then what happens is you missed out on a property that you lost, and then now that property is now $40,000 higher 6 months more, when you could have probably just signed off on a broker buyer agreement that's 12.5, and now you just made a huge return on your investment.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
now it's business, now it's ROI. And, that is really where the value comes in. And those are the stories that you and I could tell.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the big things too was, having the best marketing that you can about yourself and what you can do and how we're going to be able to represent our client the best way, and really help them understand, really you should really decide and really think about who the best agent is for you, and I think that makes a huge difference. And when it comes down to, you choosing an agent, it's not just a company. It's not just that guy got referred by that guy, or that girl got referred by that person, or whatever. It's the fact of like, where is the value and why you are the best versus someone else. And it brings it to really to the reality of like, if you don't have that, if you are not dead set on how to explain these things and how to bring that value and handle those, objections right away, you're going to be in serious, trouble, because they're going to, they, meaning buyers, sellers, investors, they're going to say, why should I hire you? What makes you different? This other guy's $1,000. This guy's $5,000. You're asking for 10. Like, how does that work?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's like, and like you said, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, why is it that you're worth what you're worth? And you have to have a rock solid, reason.
It's an elevator pitch, right?
Sure.
I mean, literally, we talked about not being a salesman, but this
that's the other thing. You're going to come off across as a salesman.
You don't want to be that guy. We're not that person.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're going to have to sell yourself, right?
Yep.
And that's where the confidence is going to come in.
Yeah.
All right. And, if you don't have a resume to speak for itself, right? Because sometimes let the resume do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't have a triangle for trust where you don't have someone referring you, right? Where someone already had a great experience with you. And now it's just kind of one-on-one. This is a consultation. Why should I hire you?
Right.
And not them? What's your value proposition? That's where the practice is going to come.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that you can just kind of shoot off the hip of a consultation. You're going to have to get scripted with why, and what you do and how you do it. And there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, you're really going to have to be able to deliver that.
Right.
And then obviously be able to close on that. Right. But
and then on top of that, not be like the cocky salesman type, whatever, but it just, the confidence and the obviously the way to come across to really explain why and who I am and what I'm about and what I can do for you and so on. And I think it's a little tricky for me personally, because I don't like to be that guy. And it's nothing against people that do it. They obviously, that's the way they do it. That's how they're competent. That's how they come across. People respect that. That's fantastic. But for me, it's like, I have no problem, go ahead and, just explaining who I am and why I'm the best or why I'm great at what I do.
Sure, man.
Against you. But like, but at the same time, like, now I got to come across kind of like, here's all my things in 30 seconds and this is why I'm the best. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not why I like doing what I do. I do things because I like to build relationships. I like to build opportunities with people and build a friendship, if you will. And my wife always makes fun of me and she's like, why do you have to become friends with everyone? I'm like, because I love what I do.
Yeah,
and it's so much fun and it's great. And it's like, if I can, not only just help them out a little bit, but maybe then go to their wedding and their baby shower and whatever, maybe not baby shower, but like, the whatever type,
Sure.
it means a lot to me. I get to go to 3 of them this year for my clients that are all getting married. I'm like, how cool is that?
You care. You care.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
you're a part of their journey. You
right.
actually advise them on one of the largest financial assets they're ever going to make in their
Yeah.
life. That's where the memories are come. That's where all the emotion is. I mean, that's life, this house, right? Yeah, I get it, man. It's going to be a really difficult balance between coming off as arrogant versus coming off as confident. But you're going to have to be able to confidently articulate your value, all right, for people to compensate you, right? And that's just the direction of this market. So we're all going to have to sharpen the pencil, so to speak, because it's just what it is, and including myself. I mean, it's going to be a combination of business savviness, and then of course being able to articulate the value, but also too showing up in other areas, right? What does your website say about you? What does your social media presence say about you, right? What does your appearance say about you, right? Yeah. These are all, everything is coming full circle, and anything that you think could definitely be a setback, right? And you got to have those internal conversations, right? You're gonna have to really look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, you know what? I've got to work on this, right? And this is where self-development, this is where personal growth, all right? And this is where, hey, leaving your ego at the door, right? Like, hey, man, I am not that good at this, okay? I need to improve, right? Yeah. And those conversations, well, if you're not having them, all right, I'm having them.
Yeah.
I got a lot of holes in my business, Steve. A lot of holes in my delivery.
Me too.
We're all new at this, right? How is this going to go? Well, talk to me in a year. I'll let you know. You know what I mean? But there is no ifs, ands, or buts. You're going to have to be able to deliver
and adapt for sure.
Deliver, adapt, be resilient across the board.
Yeah.
Anticipate, but you got to know your stuff, man. You're going to really have to know your stuff, because that's really what it comes down to, right? Like, do I know the market better than this discount broker? And you know what? I think I can articulate that and say, yeah. Why? Because I'm spending a lot of time doing that, right? Steve, you're spending a lot of time doing that. We're getting together. We're talking here, right? We're working with other like-minded brokers. That's what's going to happen. That's why we're different.
Yeah, no, for sure. What is your opinion as far as like the amount? So I think I read a statistic that was saying that during COVID, it went down about 30% as far as brokers go. So there was like 800, then there was 1.2, and then it went down to like 8, and now it's over 1.6 again. And then that's slowly going down, obviously. I think we lost probably a lot when they had to renew this year and that sort of thing too. I don't know what percentage or whatnot, but I kind of wonder what's going to happen here, because I feel like, especially with the ones that are individualized and not on teams, in my opinion, I feel like a team, or at least being with a mentor that is going to give you and help you understand and educate you and really work with you and hone in your skills and and your craft and things like that. I think that's going to be a big difference. But I think the individual ones that are, especially the part-time ones, like we mentioned, or the ones that are just kind of going on their own and they've been in the industry for 6 months, a year. What do you see? What do you think?
So here's the truth, right? There's always going to be the exception, right? A few of them will probably make it, through resilience. They're going to be adaptable. They're going to be coachable, right? They're going to implement and execute, right? Those agents, those are the ones that I think, will have a chance, right, to actually get through this. But if I was going to make any type of bold prediction, and I know this is going to sound cynical, for a lack of better, just that is, I think a third of agents, newer agents, aren't going to make it.
A third of agents?
I think a third of newer agents that got into it in the last 3 years, I think they're going to have they're already having a difficult time now, right? And I think they're going to even have, and I think it's just going to get a little bit more challenging, all right, for them. I think that if you haven't been able to figure it out in the last 3 years, no one has it all figured out, right? But if you really haven't been able to build that momentum, right, I think that a third of agents, newer agents, are going to definitely just realize that this business is not for them, right? And when you factor in affordability, the inventory dynamics, right, the lack of market knowledge, the lack of direction is in this industry, right? We can talk. That's a whole nother. That's a whole other segment, right? Right. So the truth is that a lot of agents are walking in the dark, right? And then a lot of people, again, we talked about this, is ego, right? They don't want to, they stepped into this unknown realm, and now they're afraid to ask for help. No. You know what I mean? Those agents that are not asking for help, those agents that maybe had a mentor and then left them, think they can do it on their own, right? Well, I think that those agents, they're going to have a difficult time, right?
It's kind of like being in the nest of the bird and then basically being like, oh, I can fly before my mom says I could fly. And then I crash and burn.
Really thinking forgetting about the whole development process and what being next to someone that's adaptable, resilient, actually did for you, right? That energy, right? That environment, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that some of those agents are going to have a difficult time. They're going to probably weed out. I think a lot of agents, unfortunately, are not in a financial position to sustain the volatility. And I do think that, if you don't have 6 months of reserves, you better ramp it up to 12, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a bumpy road. And if you're not good at budgeting and shaving expenses, well, you better start learning and learn quick, right?
No doubt.
Because it's coming, right? Those agents with poor financial management, and there's a lot of them, okay? I think that they're going to be forced to get a part-time job. What does that do to your value proposition? You are now a part-time agent. I'm going to come in there. I'm going to eat your lunch.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I do think that we're going to see a lot of agents, and people might call me nuts, but I do think that 2/3 of agents right now, right, are really on the brink of becoming part-time agents, which makes full-time agents like you and I really going to take the more lion's share, of the market. So we obviously got to get in front of as many people as possible, continue to get better, continue to collaborate, right? Continue to, think outside of the box. That ultimately, I think, is what's going to actually push us ahead, versus the ones that, don't necessarily have that vision or have that adaptability or resilience.
Yeah, for sure. It makes a big difference, I think, with the fact of the experience and the ability to be open to learning and coachable and teachable and that sort of thing too. I think, depending on the age of these agents and the fact of like the kind of the different mindset that they may have as well makes a difference. And they need to be confident in themselves, in where they work, who they work for, who's helping them. Are they with the right people? Are they with successful people so they can be successful? The old analogy, the old phrase, whatever it would be, and the fact of like, if you're with people that are successful, you're hanging out with them, you're going to be successful.
Your network is your net worth, right? And you know that, right?
For
and
sure.
So obviously you want to surround yourself, with people that are going to enhance your value, right? If you're hanging a bird of a feather, flock together. It's just that simple.
Absolutely.
If you're, it's and I think the term now they're calling it ambivalent relationships, right? Where if you're, kind of in a relationship and you kind of like this person, but you don't, you're wasting your time, right? If you're kind of in this business, you're wasting your time. You got to be all in, man. And then more importantly, everyone around you needs to be supporting you. And if they're not supporting you, then they're hurting you, right? And you got to be in an environment. And that environment, Steve, it could be a brokerage, it could be on a team, it could be with a leader, whatever is an environment that's pouring into your growth and helping you fill all of these additional cups of life in addition to enhancing your real estate knowledge, right? Then, you're going to find yourself being, dragged, right? It's going to be somewhat of an anchor, right? So you really got to be intentional with your time, who you're spending your time with, who you're pouring energy with. I mean, this is going to be a survival of the fittest.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And
it really
a lot of these agents right now, I just don't think they've embraced that type of awareness.
Right.
And I think that's really the setback that we're seeing. Everyone's talking about experience and everyone's talking about value, right?
Right.
And I'm saying you got to be aware. You got to learn how to adapt. You got to be resilient. Challenges have always existed, right? But those who've been resilient, those who've had awareness, those who've been able to adapt, those are the ones who continue to thrive, right?
Right.
But you have to have the environment to thrive, right? You got to be on a team that is going to allow you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable knowing that you're going to make mistakes, all right? You're going to have to be comfortable knowing that, man, it's the string of pearl concepts, right? That the secret is moving forward and adding another pearl to the string, but looking back and knowing that there's going to be a turd in every pearl, right? It's just what it is, man. You know what I mean? You know, you got to look back and reflect and be like, yeah.
It's interesting you bring it up because of the fact of like when I was a little bit wet behind the ears still, whatever, and I jumped with a mentor, he taught me what to do and what not to do. And, I tell these agents now, I'm like, listen, if I didn't have him, I could be out of my job because I had screwed up on a lot of things. I mean, I'm human. And the fact is you get all excited about doing these things and building this and doing that and helping this person. But at the same time, you also, as you mentioned before, like you got to stay within the boundaries of the legality of your job, right? So you can't do things that are like going to jeopardize those things that you can, but if you get caught, that's bad. Plus the fact that you don't want to and you really love doing what you do, so therefore you really want to hone in on your craft, get really good at it, and so on. And I think a lot of the agents that are newer really have to be open to that and understand that, because it's not about us getting down on them or pushing them out of the market. And more importantly, is like, teaching them and coaching them. It's not that we don't think they can do it. It's the fact that we need to make sure they're crystal clear on what's allowed and what's not.
Well, let's talk about that clarity you're saying. And I know you and I, and you know me, I'm big on the basics, right?
Of course.
And I think that in addition to this whole stratosphere of all that we have to get dialed in to be successful, I think that it's really most important, just like in anything, is master the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Get comfortable doing the mundane things that you're not going to see the immediate results on, right? Making the phone calls, putting the videos, realizing that when you first go on social media, you're going to be terrible. That first video you put out is probably not going to be, you can look back on it 3 years later and be like, what was I thinking? Okay.
I got to look at those.
Yeah.
I want to see how bad those are.
Right. Think about how far you've come, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta really just understand the holes in your business and really understand that. And I think I told you, obviously one of my idols is Kobe Bryant, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was a killer, right?
Yeah.
And there was always this one video that I watch almost on a daily basis. And to summarize it really short was, he does the most basic drills the first hour of his practice that third graders do. And someone came up to him at the end of his practice and said, hey, man, you were doing some pretty basic stuff. And he says, why do you think I'm the best?
Yep.
I never get bored with the basics,
Mm-hmm.
all right? And the basics is not what's taught, Steve. The basics is not what's taught, right? Fundamentals is everything, right? If you got good fundamentals of business, you got good fundamentals of real estate, you got a good framework, right? I can tell you right now, man, you're still going to be tough to beat. You may not necessarily be the all-star or the MVP, but someone's going to want you on their team. Right? Because you got a good understanding of the game. But right now, this market and this whole industry, this whole world, right? This real estate, this game of real estate, right? We're taught about, how to be flashy, and we're taught about what's hot, and we all want to be on the rooftop decks, right? You know what I mean? But no one wants to be in that office writing that thank you card, right?
Yep.
No one wants to be at that open house and actually sending out that video at the open house and saying thank you for coming, right?
Yep.
No one wants to actually look at themselves in the mirror and practice their delivering that value proposition, right?
Absolutely.
And actually, no one wants to do that, right? So again, man, the clarity that you need, the environment that you need, the guidance that you need, right? And we all have to kind of look.
It's the simplest things too. It's not like a big deal. Look, 2 years ago, whatever it was, when we had to start videos or whatever, doing a quick video on your phone type thing.
The bombs,
right? Yeah.
Man.
Hey, when we had to do those, whatever, it was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, I don't want to be on video. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And then the more we did it, we're like, whatever, who cares? Like, just do what you can. You got to redo a few times, fine, not a big deal. You know, and the thing is that I really feel like just the simplest. Yeah, I was doing one of the boot camps yesterday. We did a boot camp all week with the newer agents, and it's one of those where the experienced agents, such as myself, come out and I do all of mine on SOI, so explain everything on how to do SOI, right? And one of the things that I told them, I said, listen, take out your phone, call somebody that you know that something that would make an impactful gesture. So in other words, that person's birthday is today, or that person's anniversary is today, or hey, I haven't talked to that person for a while. Whatever it is, you take a quick video and you say, hey, I just thinking about you. I want to say hello. It took me back to so and so, or hey, I hope you have a great birthday. Blah blah blah. One of my agents did that, and sure enough, by the end of the day, he's like, man, I did that. And the guy was like, holy cow, that was such a cool thing you did for me. And all it was is a simple 2-minute, maybe minute, whatever, just saying, hey, happy birthday, man, thinking about you.
Steve, you've nailed it. Mm-hmm. You nailed it right there. That could be the only phone call they get that day.
Yeah.
Right? You just don't know, man. All right? You remembered, you showed up, right? And that's what it's about. Right. It goes back to the point is you showed up for these people. You didn't have to do that. There's no return on investment by you doing that, but you showed that you care. Right. You showed that you were paying attention, all right? And I think that is so underestimated in this business. It's like, oh, it's cheesy. No. What it shows is that, you know what? You care. And you're actually showing how much you care, all right? And you just never know. That could be the only birthday call they get. That could be the only video that they get. You don't know the struggles that people are going through right now. I've got a friend of mine right now, and her husband just fell off a ladder. Broke fractured his neck, right? And she's putting out videos every single day about updates. I'm like, man, what a great wife showing up for her husband like this. What I mean? And I try to comment on her videos every single day. You know how grateful she is just by getting that confidence that like, wow, someone is listening. It's the same point. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Just a thank you card or a birthday card or you remembering their favorite restaurant, right? Or you just give them a call and say, hey man, I'm here for you, man. How's life, man? You doing okay? June, it's a mental awareness health month, right? I'm
you're talking about Juneteenth or what are you?
No, June. Exactly? The whole month of June is Mental Awareness Month, right? Men's Health Awareness Month. I'm calling all my clients, man. I'm saying, hey, man, come on my boat. You know what I mean? I want you to, let's talk about life, man. Are you okay? How you doing? How you, checking in on these people, right? Mm-hmm. I had a client, he's going through a divorce. You know what I mean? We talked for about 2 hours, man. 2 hours we talked. He needed that conversation. You think he's going to forget that? How many you could tell he had no one to talk to? Right. That's the whole point, man. Right. You never know what that actually means to someone, right? Yeah, so go ahead and do the work. But here's the thing. You cannot do the right thing all of the time and not get rewarded for it. You can't go to the gym 5 days a week and not look better. It just doesn't work that way. So if you're doing all of the basics, you're doing the fundamentals, right? Mm-hmm. You're making the phone calls, you're dialing up your sphere, right? You're getting organized, and you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I did something different that's going to make a difference later, right? Your trajectory on a daily basis on trying to get better is going to be so far, you're going to make so much improvement. It's going to make so many leaps. But here's the truth. Not everyone's going to do it.
Right. Yeah, it makes a big difference for sure. And that's, if you expect, insanity, right? You do the same thing and expect something at different results.
Right.
It wouldn't make any sense. Yeah. It's just like, it's crazy to me. And I think that's the other thing too, is like the things that we do, religiously, and you try to teach the new agents how to do this, or any agent that wants to get more dialed in, right? And being able to give great customer service and being able to connect with their clients and so on. You don't have to do every single thing that we do. Just like when we got into, doing our different coachings, right? You don't have to do everything they do. Just start with one thing, then go to the second thing, and then just bring them all together. I think it makes a huge difference. And I know that you're more religiously great at, doing things every single day. Whereas for me, I do them, but I don't do them quite the right way. And it's like you said, back to the basics, right? it's the same thing as basketball. It's the same thing as business. It's the same thing as anything. Like you gotta do that. I play a lot of pool, right? So billiards is my thing. I love doing that. And I'll be shooting or whatever, and I'll miss a shot, and or whatever, and I get frustrated. And I realize, and I remember people that were much better than I was, like, hey, dude, just get back to the basics. Just do some drills, right? So I'm like, all right, fine. So I do the drills, right? I don't get to play pool enough, just like all of us don't get to do probably what we love to do all the time, because we love doing what we do otherwise, right? So, and I'll start doing the drills, and I'll do them, and I'll do them, and then I'll get up there to play pool, like in a match, and I'm like, oh, I just did this drill, boom, 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 right? So I think it's the same thing. It's repetitiveness. It's also the fact of having the confidence and just being okay with not being perfect.
Yeah, man. And to your point, Steve, I have a theme day every single day, right? I am very, very regimented, okay?
Right.
But we all fall off, right? There are days where, man, unfortunately, you got a flat tire, or you got to put out a fire, right? But where the discipline come in is, okay, I know I got to do this. Now I got to put it on another day, right?
Yep.
And I got to make up that time, right? But what happens is, sometimes you make all these, these subtle changes, right? You don't do all these little things, right? And it's a little thing here, 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 and those inches turned into feet turns into yards turned into, football fields, right? And now you're just way off of course. So I think that's also where the discipline is, that like it's things are going to happen. You're going to have to constantly adapt, right?
For sure.
But it's going to be but it's an interesting ride. It's a great journey. Real estate.
It's fun times.
Real estate's romantic, Steve.
Fun times.
I always say real estate's romantic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, brother, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you so much. Always appreciate your wisdom and everything you give to me, as well as when you came out a couple weeks ago for the panel. That was fantastic too. So I appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me on, Steve. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.